welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm your host, Katie Halper. Very excited to be talking to our guest today, who is Ryan Grim, a journalist at The Intercept. He broke the Christine Blasey Ford story at The Intercept. He also broke the Tara Reade story at The Intercept. And on the previous episode of the Katie Halper Show, we talked about the differences between those stories and the differences in the way people responded to it. He's here to talk about the latest development in that story. So, welcome, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what the latest is in the Tara Reade story?
The latest is confirmation of a claim that she had made, to I believe you, and also to me and perhaps some others over the course of our reporting on this story. She had said that sometime in the 1990s, her mother called the Larry King Show and said that her daughter had worked for a prominent senator, had been, sexually harassed and retaliated against, and what advice would the panel have, for someone in that situation, something to that effect. And so, we went looking for this call, but it was difficult through the different mechanisms that we use to search, because Larry King doesn't name the callers. She told us that she would have been living in California at the time, so that doesn't narrow it down terribly much. Right. She was living in San Luis Obispo County, which did end up helping to narrow it down further. But it wasn't until after I mentioned the call on your show that a listener went and searched it using a process that I hadn't thought of, which is Nexus transcripts. And I was kicking myself because I didn't think that transcripts of the Larry King Show went back to the early 1990s in Nexus. Now I know that. And, we were able to quickly, search Nexus ourselves and confirm that she had found the right episode. And so it's a woman from San Luis Obispo calling in August 1993, the year and the month that Tara Reade left Joe Biden's office, saying, my daughter just left a prominent senator's office. She was unable to get through with her problems. And what can she do other than go to the press? Both her brother and Tara Reade herself have said that sounds like our mother's voice. It's inconceivable to me that it could be anybody but her mother. The coincidence would have to be just too extraordinary.
Right.
San Luis Obispo, California. Hello.
Yes, hello. I'm wondering what a staffer would do besides go to the press in Washington. My daughter has just left there after working for a prominent senator and could not get through with her problems at all. And the only thing she could have done was go to the press, and she chose not to do it out of respect for him.
Or she had a story to tell, but out of respect for the person she worked for, she didn't tell it.
That's true.
What is the significance of that video? Because a lot of people are saying, okay, well, what does that prove? She didn't mention the harassment, certainly didn't mention the sexual assault. This doesn't prove anything.
So, sure, we could be clear about what it doesn't prove first. Even if she had said, my daughter was assaulted by a prominent senator, and I urged her to go to the police, that still wouldn't prove that it happened.
Sure.
It would prove that Tara had told her that had happened at the time. So the question of the call comes down to, what can it confirm? The only thing it can confirm is, what did Tara Reade tell other people at the time? We can know what she told her friend and what she told her brother because we can speak to them. Her mother passed away in 2016, so we can't ask her. So the only thing she has to verify her claim that she told her mother about this is actually her brother and her friend confirm it. Her brother remembers talking to her mother about it, and her mother being up in arms, suggesting she should go to the police. And her friend recalls, also recalls her mother being involved. So there's those pieces of evidence. But now we do have this contemporaneous piece of evidence that her mother and her talked about something that happened at the office.
Right.
that was bad enough that the press in 1993 would care about it.
Right.
And so you have to ask yourself, what level, if you believe that she's only referring to harassment there, okay, what level of harassment are we talking about that the press would care about in 1993? Now, you could also say, well, she knew at this point that Tara did not want to go public.
Right.
And so she's already kind of breaking with her daughter a little bit. And this appears to be within her mother's character. She was a feminist activist, a longtime left-wing activist,
right.
Somebody who cared deeply about the world and standing up for yourself her entire life. And so, she wanted Tara to push forward with this. Tara didn't want to. So she knows she's going further than Tara wants. And she probably also knows that if she says police on national television, that her daughter just left a prominent senator's office. Only so many people depart Senate offices every month. And that
right.
something happened that would have warranted her going to the police, like that could become a scandal.
Right.
What happened? If it's the press, that's less likely to get picked up by the rest of the media. What's the follow-up story to that? There isn't one. And so you can imagine why her mother would not have wanted to talk about the police,
right.
talk about specifically about sexual harassment, or talk specifically about sexual assault. So what does it prove? It's unfair to say that it proves nothing. It doesn't prove that there was an assault. It buttresses her credibility because she made a claim. Her claim was that her mother called the Larry King Live show and talked about her issues with the Biden office. We can now confirm that claim is true, and it also confirms that she spoke with her mother about something that happened with the Biden office, and that her mother was disturbed enough by whatever she heard that she decided to make this phone call. And so you have an interesting situation where the Biden campaign is dug in, and you can understand why, on a flat out 100% denial of all aspects of these allegations, from her April 9th, 2019 ones all the way through to today. But a number of Biden supporters seem to be trending in a different direction, which is to say, you know what? I actually do believe that Tara went through some type of sexual harassment in the office. That fits within Biden's character,
right.
as we've all seen on videos
right.
throughout his entire career, and it fits with what she said. It maps with what we see in this video, and also with what she said in April 2019, what she told her friend, what she told her brother. But they stop short and they say, okay, we'll acknowledge that happened, but we don't believe that an assault happened. For those people, it's probably not going to do a lot to convince them, just as unearthing the actual complaint that she filed would similarly not do much for those people, because that complaint was about workplace harassment right. and not the incident in the hallway.
Right. So, I mean, if people were honest, though, of course, this would go towards Biden's credibility or the Biden campaign's credibility, because, as you point out, they're denying anything inappropriate was done. Marianne Baker made the unfortunate, for her own credibility, I would say, claim that she never witnessed anything inappropriate, not just with Tara Reade, but between anyone. And I kind of don't know why she would say that, because anyone who's seen footage of Biden knows that he's done inappropriate things. Sure, it's not sexual assault. It's not even necessarily sexual harassment. But the idea that this guy who has done things on camera that are really weird, like, let's say, to be generous, to be charitable, violations of personal space.
Right.
The idea that he'd never done anything like that with other people it's not credible. And as you said, this does go to the credibility of the Biden campaign, which is, circling the wagons. And it's also interesting that Biden himself has not denied it. He's only had his campaign deny it. And another interesting thing is that you had said to me during our interview where we mentioned this video, that to you was kind of suggested a veracity because it was such a weird, specific thing to mention. And had there been a transcript of all the episodes, which now we know there was, but if it didn't exist, then someone could have easily looked through those and been like, no one ever called mentioning that. So it gives her much more, that credibility too. And then in terms of her remembering that her mom said more things than she said, again, Ryan's kids agree with me, by the way. They are outraged by this. But again, she knew what her mom was referring to. This was, in the
Right.
90s. It makes sense too. She's not lying. She knew what she heard there was that it was in reference to this.
Right, and it's an interesting comment about the fallibility of our memories,
Right.
The precision of our memories, and their relationship to actual events.
Right.
So when she said, I don't know what year she called Larry King, people could easily have said, because she doesn't know the exact date of the incident in the hallway with Biden. People could say she doesn't know the year. That's ridiculous. If she can't even tell you what year it is in an entire decade, how are we supposed to believe that it ever happened? Lo and behold, it
Right.
did happen. But that's how memory
Exactly.
works. She just didn't remember exactly. And she also, like you said, she knew in her mind, in her heart, that what her mother was talking about was the sexual harassment and retaliation, which is interesting. That goes to show that like her mother at that point was probably not calling in about this specific assault. And I think we can get into why that might have been. But so right, that would be why she remembered more precision in the call, because in her mind, she understood that that's what was happening. But then you look at the actual transcript, that could even happen within an hour or two of a thing happening.
Sure.
where you remember what somebody said slightly differently. Like if we had stenographers who went around with us and typed up our conversations that we were having with people and then read them back to us, a couple hours later, we'd often be surprised about exactly what was said. Certainly people who are having fights with each other
Right.
would love to have these stenographers, but then would be shocked to find, oh wait, I did say
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah, totally.
that you said that I was denying saying. But on the question of the assault, so and whether that's precisely what she was referring to, or whether she was kind of putting them all together in one big basket, which we just can't know. I could imagine that she had urged her to go to the police about the assault. Tara at the time told me, and I think told you too, that in the moment or immediately afterwards, she didn't it wasn't until she talked to her
Right.
mother that she processed it as an assault. Right in the aftermath, she did that very typical thing, which is to say, what did
Right.
I do wrong? What on earth did I do to bring this on to myself?
Right.
Getting into that kind of toxic discourse of where people blame, where women blame themselves for things that men do. And so, once she refused to take her mother's advice and go to the police about this, you could see her mother saying, okay, well, I've lost that fight.
Right.
But what about this sexual harassment in the workplace fight? Like this, he just oversaw the hearings that confirmed Clarence Thomas, in the face of Anita Hill's extraordinarily damning sexual harassment testimony, and here he is running an office himself that has a hostile culture. Like, isn't that something that you would want to push to the press? So you could see that maybe that's the angle that she was trying to go after she had failed to get Tara to go to the police about the assault. Or if you were committed to it, you could say, what's true is that there was harassment, and that whether Tara is lying or believes it, that the assault just simply didn't happen. And I'm going to choose to not believe that, but I will believe this other half of it. But like I said, that's not the path that the Biden campaign
Right.
is taking. They're saying that it's all made
Yeah,
up.
exactly. So basically, different Biden supporters can rationalize things in their minds, but The thing is that they probably rationalized the Biden campaign just full out denying everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is very frustrating and demoralizing and problematic when to see people smearing Tara because they either don't want to get into what the Biden campaign is actually doing, or because they don't want to grapple with publicly say, the priority is to defeat Trump.
Right.